Hi, I'm Bill Doherty, and I want to welcome the viewers back to another edition of Bill's Bullpen. Bill's Bullpen is a program that's intended to show and to talk about things that are of local interest and perhaps of regional interest. And today I'm very privileged to have Judy Froman, who is the chair of the Bourne Selectmen. Now, of course, I have to be careful about that, as far as absolute, PC. But I was watching, what was it, the Battlestar Galactica, and they were calling, regardless of gender, everybody yes sir, no sir. So maybe there's sort of not a dumbing down, but sort of an evening out of gender, as far as part of it goes. But in any case, here we are, almost, not quite, but almost at the end of the COVID crisis on Cape Cod. Mm-hmm. And here we have been in Bourne, where everything has been on Zoom, mm-hmm. but the Zoom is now perhaps coming to an end. Mm-hmm. So the first question is, what are the takeaways from the last year of being shut away from having, I'd say, human contact?
Sure. I would say that the takeaways are that human contact is actually really important to have, but that's probably no surprise to anybody. But it also opened the door to attending more meetings, or being able to participate in more meetings, which I think has really broadened our perspective, mm-hmm. Because you don't have to spend that travel time to go to a meeting. You can jump in, you can watch, you can listen, you can participate. One of the other things that I think it really helped push us a little bit is to become more effective with how to use electronic communications, not just Zoom, but how to process permits and how to streamline things. And it's a big undertaking, but without this probably sounds terrible, but without people coming into the buildings and all, it helped people segment their time and really, focus during periods of time to get to improve some systems. I mean, obviously, there's a lot more to get done, but it kind of was like that little push to become a little bit more efficient on some of the systems, mm-hmm.
Which
will help us, have some time to do some other things. I mean, we're going to fill our time no matter what, right?
Well, yeah, I think that's part of the trade that we follow,
mm-hmm.
being in politics.
Yeah.
Of course, I'm retired from that now. But I do remember 10 years ago when we were trying to institute something like permit applications online, mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. and we really were struggling, with that. It was acknowledged that it's an important thing to have, but there was a resistance because people wanted to get in front of somebody, mm-hmm. and perhaps negotiate, things. Mm-hmm. How have you dealt with that part of, let's say, resistance to, not the impersonality of it, but the part where you're not really having that personal contact? What have you heard from the public about that?
Well, I think probably the squeakiest wheels are the people who are upset that they can't just walk in and, do the things the way that they thought was most efficient. Mm-hmm. It may have been the most efficient for them because maybe they're not as accustomed to being online. For many years during the transition of having electronic communications and, through the internet and all of that, in my personal life, professional life, I've always made sure that there's always a printed version of something. You can't just do things electronically, but, and to help coach people through that process. Mm-hmm. And some people are more open to it than others. And, transition and change is really challenging for some people, and they don't want to learn how to do it. And I have to say that maybe the time has come that we have to. The resistance to being in town hall in person or a number of the other buildings in person, people want to be there because it's also a little bit of a social thing, mm-hmm. to have that connection, feel like you're on, there's no mystery behind the doors. But the fact of the matter is our town hall is not set up for distance, and keeping people safe, 6 feet, air circulation, all kinds of things like that. I mean, you can't even walk down the hallway.
Used to be a bank.
There you go.
Okay, so, and in a bank, there's more of an emphasis on security than anything
Yes.
else. I think that, personally, the thing I miss most is the library.
Oh, yes.
And,
Yep.
and as a friend of the library, I've always been, I felt that the library is really the focal point of gathering in a community. You go there to read to read back issues of the paper. You don't have to have a subscription to the New Yorker anymore to read the cartoons, which is the only thing I ever read anyway. So that was part of it. So
Yeah.
okay, so there's a resistance. I also recall that when we were instituting an extension of the RTA's bus service, that we initially had set it up for what we thought were the needs of seniors. But what we found out was the seniors wanted a cab service for $1 a ride.
Right.
Okay, but the kids, especially the kids who wanted to take their skateboards and go to someplace where they could use it, I found that mothers who didn't have to take off time from work to get to pick up their kids at the library. Matter of fact, one of my memory came over and says, "I could kiss you," and I said, "Please, I'm a grandfather. I might not be able to handle it." So there's that. So, have you found any, let's say, any method or anything that had come up that would that you've learned that might help people be more comfortable with, let's say, with who have been resistant to going online?
Well, I think that having the customer support and walking people through things one-on-one, because everybody's kind of coming to this at a different level of experience, and just listen, being patient with people, and really directing some time with that. Okay, this is what your screen looks like. Everybody's platform, everybody's screen looks different. We run into that in my house with different phones, different types of phones, but the platforms look different. So the vision, what people are looking at looks different. And so being able to, help people walk through that and understand that, okay, I might call you back tomorrow with the same question, and just being patient with that. I think that that's something that really will help, kind of ease that pain a little bit. If somebody who's totally resistant to it, I suggest they buddy up with somebody who is, comfortable with being online.
Well, here we are. We're getting into the season where people, and there's a lot of revenue that comes to the town from it, of getting those permits for parking, for fishing, for a lot of the recreation stuff that we have.
Yeah.
What's your... I don't think you've really felt the pressure from it because, spring is just upon us. What do you anticipate to, let's say, to handle that? Is that something that's going online? Because there is that matter of delivering the physical permit, because,
Yes.
Natural Resource and other folks have to have to see some evidence that, that people have that. It's not
Yeah.
like going on an airplane where you take out your phone and say, "Yeah, I've got the ticket right here."
Right,
Yeah.
right. So there will be, there are options to pick them up, call and make an appointment to pick them up. There are also options to have it just mailed to you. It takes a little bit longer, to get those stickers and that type of thing, which is a little bit frustrating. Some of the online permitting is independent of a e-permitting that is in the process of being implemented, and it hasn't been implemented fully yet. And the e-permitting connects the different departments so that people aren't having to duplicate their efforts, when they go online and have to keep filling in information. And it keeps it, and it also helps the people who are working for the town not to have to walk around, and hand deliver things and that type of thing. So there's going to be resistance. I mean, I have to say, you can go in and you can fill in the information, and it's just like, oh, I have a $5 fee or something. It's like, well, there's an annoyance, but I think it's all a process, and I don't think we're quite where we need to be yet,
Okay, well,
and so there
this
will be
is
frustrating.
This has been a problem for some time, because in the ideal, you have to go before every board that's appropriate in the town in
Yes.
order to get a, let's say, a building permit.
Yep.
Okay?
Yep.
And when you're physically taking this from place to place, there is the issue of, and this comes up as to how you faced it during the last year.
Mm-hmm.
Many things have to be heard before different boards.
Right.
Okay, and there is let's say a time constraint that
Mhm.
says that this board meets on the beginning of the month, this board meets at the end of the month.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything you've learned over the last year about facilitating that process so that you don't have to, let's say, so you can consolidate that part of it?
Well, to me, it seems very logical to be able to put that information right out in front of people, and I think we have a ways to go with that. Right now, we're in the process of having an IT audit for the town, just to, and the county is, we hired the county to do this audit, just to get a sense of, okay, where are the holes, where are the things that we should be focusing on, who, because they have the expertise. And so it's like, okay, let's get a sense of this. So like with our financial audits, for a few years, there have been, one of the key points has been, look at your IT, and follow that. So we're doing that. I mean,
Is
at
this
this
Mass Municipal?
no, we have to do it for the state anyway. For like a financial audit.
Oh, yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I remember back
I didn't
in
know
the
if
day.
I spoke it
Yeah,
right.
yeah. Matter of fact, I think the only time I really felt as though I remembered anything about financial management from my, when I got my MBA was when I was in politics and I could read a balance sheet and a pro forma.
Yeah.
And I used to really get my say administrator upset because and it's like, you're not supposed to pay attention to that. Your policy.
Yeah.
Now, do you get any of that?
Yeah, all the time. Yeah, that's
I think that's
part of
what-
it.
what
But I
folks
think that's
need to
part of
know
the
is
checks and
that,
balances. Yeah.
The folks need to know that, part of the most important part of, of local government is setting a policy and finding the right people to put in, let's say, to put in place to actually manage the activity.
Yes.
And that if they don't perform, the policy is to get somebody in, that will do the job.
Right,
Yeah.
right. And I do think, there has been a change over the last 25 years, obviously.
Yes, I remember those halcyon days. Bourne was the last town on the Cape to get rid
Yeah.
of a permanent, let's say, full-time selectman.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that, that's a cultural change that's in transition. I mean, now there are people who, we pay good money to be the experts in the field. Doesn't mean they shouldn't be questioned, but it does mean that they are experts in the field. So stop and listen, and let's engage in that conversation and provide the information. I think a lot of times, people think, oh, there's not enough information. Like I don't know what this is. And it's like, okay, well, you need to ask, because we can guess to the number of questions that you might have, but there are so many moving parts. The town administrator position, the administrative positions are very, they're generalists that keep connecting the dots and making sure that they have all of the professionals in place who should be the professionals in place, who are the experts in their field. So if there's a question, ask it. If it's don't speculate or jump to negative conclusion. I mean, that's jumping to negative conclusions is one of my biggest pet peeves. It's like,
Oh. Trust me,
Yeah.
patience is important, but there is, there comes a time when, okay, you've been given enough time to get this particular job done, and I think that's part of a management scheme, and I think in your real life, you are a
Yep.
manager, so I
Yes.
think I
Yep.
think you appreciate the difference between reasonable intervals to get things done, and let's say procrastination, which is which is part of a long-term effort on the part of folks. Okay, so of the departments that that are under the purview of of the selectmen, I know you're also sewer commissioners.
yes.
And that's right now, that's a big thing, and I think that folks might want to be brought up to date as to
Sure.
where the the sewer activities of going, because that's a big expense for the town.
It is, it is. And I do have to say that, with Jim Potter as the chair of the sewer commissioners, it's like each one of us on the board of selectmen, or which are the same people who are on the sewer commissioners, but we switch around lead responsibilities. This is something that's really, he's passionate about it. He's driven about, making sure that we, get information out to the public, and we support that as a board. We absolutely support that. So having conversations early and, engaging people and, educating people will help in a major way to get to where we need to go. That's a change from, previous politics, I would say, to having conversations early and it's not a done deal. We have right now, we're having a comprehensive wastewater management document created. It's going to take 18
from my
months.
personal point of view, that would make me very happy.
Yeah.
Spent a lot of time and energy on on trying to implement that years ago.
Yeah.
And it's, to me, that's one of the most significant things you can do, because in order to keep our water clean,
Right.
you have to have methods to dispose of it properly. And with Jim Potter, of course, since we have Bourne is doing a lot with Wareham, and he does have a special relationship. Having been active, over Wareham,
Yep.
it's my hope that that works well for us here
Yeah.
in Bourne.
Yeah, I mean, right now it's, we have an intermunicipal agreement. Do we all play around with thinking that it could be more effective for us? Yes.
Well, the whole thing on waste management is flow. And with the, with the cutback in activity, how has that affected our, let's say, our commitment on the flow?
So one of the things that I have witnessed over my last 4 years or whatever this has been that each year we get a better grasp of what that flow is. When I first got on the board, I can tell you that I would say, okay, so where's the chart that shows, what the allocations are? And at that point, there wasn't a chart. And I was like, oh, okay, so let's put a chart together. Well, the chart that was put together was anything new or anybody that was coming through the pipeline at that point. So now we're getting more, closer to looking at the flow and closer to having a more comprehensive view of what the, what the usage is. And so with our intermunicipal agreement, with that, we can go up to 200,000 gallons a day. And so we're not using that, is what we have discovered through actually studying it. So, so we have a lot, that's something to think about. How do we optimize what we need to do with our wastewater management? And, what's the short term that we need to make decisions about? What's the longer term that goes together with the comprehensive wastewater management plan, which goes for the whole town? It does include what goes on with Buzzards Bay. And we need to look at that with critical eye and think and problem solve. And, I know when I first got on the board, a staff member said to me, Judy, don't think out loud in public. And I'm like, well, then people know what I'm thinking about, and it doesn't mean that, this is something that, that I'm saying I signed off. We didn't vote. We're just thinking out loud. What are the different possibilities?
Then my question to you, Judy, is how do you actually discuss anything with the board if you don't think out loud?
Exactly. And I can say that the board that we have right now, even though we're from, we represent different aspects of the town, and we represent different perspectives and different people, we have an understanding that we have to think out loud. And that is really confusing some people, who are very entrenched in an old culture of,
Well, that leads to, what do you call it, violations of the open meeting law, when you have these discussions over a couple of brewskis someplace. Well, we're just sort of chatting. Well, you have to be very careful. And, that was one of the issues that when, many years ago when we were moving towards televising the meetings, was, okay, when we televise the meetings, we have to have open discussion.
Right.
And I got a lot of resistance, when we were first starting this, from people who would insisted that we have to have it televised. They wouldn't talk about things because they were on television.
Right,
And
right.
I'm sure that, you're running into a little bit of this.
Oh, yes.
Of course, prudence demands you keep, let's say, a little bit of, discretion with, with regard to
Yes.
things. You don't want to provoke somebody so that they pull a gun on you or something.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, we've talked about the permitting. We've talked about using online assets in order to, let's say, to get things done. We have the school department and some of the public facilities that that people would like to get back to using. What's the horizon for that? And let's start with the school department. When do you think that they will be up to completely open up? And what are we doing about taking care of the teachers in order to get them, vaccinated?
Yeah, well, I'm not deeply involved with all of that, but I think teachers should be on the front line of getting vaccinated.
Absolutely.
And it really upsets me that we haven't figured out a way to make that happen. There's been clutch and pedal of being able to, find locations, but then the way, well, obviously I have a little bit of an opinion about this, but the way that the distribution and the planning for the vaccinations has been going on disheartens me, because I truly feel that the health agents and the health departments were poised and ready to take this on. That's what they train. It's like, if you are in the armed services and you're training for war, well, there's a war. You don't want, the county militia or whatever to come in and fight the war. You want the people who've been trained to do this. So that's
Told us to the NRA, by the way.
Yeah. So, as you say. So, in terms of the schools, what a huge challenge. It really is a huge challenge to, try to keep people safe and keep them, keep students in school. They need that social interaction. I think that, there's a lot of panic about, well, we're losing a year. You know what? Everybody's in the same boat. Yeah, we're losing, and yeah, there's going to be extremes. Maybe, but we need to work hard to get in that direction. So our superintendent, I don't know if you recall, but
she's a new guy, right?
A woman, yes.
Oh,
and she started, like just a few weeks, maybe even a couple of weeks before COVID hit. And I had, what a daunting task, because she's never really even seen our system in action the way it normally can be. So, but maybe that's a good thing, because it can reinvent, how we can move forward.
That's a good point. That's a good point, because it gives a new person an opportunity to really reinvent the whole system and take advantage of past experience without interfering with, let's say, present practice, because present practice has been stalled.
Right, it really has. So I know that the drive is to get, students and teachers and everybody back in school. Some of my best friends and family members are teachers, and so, this has been one seriously exhausting year.
Oh, yeah.
Because, you think about teachers starting in September, by about Thanksgiving, or maybe by Columbus Day, they kind of hit their rhythm and they're really connecting with the students, right? Well, they are switching gears every single week. And I'm just saying this blanket, teachers in general. And, I really hope we can give them the whole summer off and relax, and then just start up next fall. Hopefully that's when the world will get back, into action again.
I, as a substitute teacher, to me it was important to get history with the kids, because then they know that you know them. Okay, so the next thing is the library, the recreational activities.
Yep.
What's a horizon for that?
I would say, over the next couple of months, there will be, right now, it's, set groups, like registering and making sure that it's a set group of people are using the community building. In terms of the library, there are definitely some challenges, and so there's like baby steps of trying to help open that up to being, a community center again. I know the library's not community center, but I do agree with you. It is a location where people gather, they have resources, it's a familiarity, it is a community center, actually. To me, it is.
Well, yeah, in other parts of the country, the county, is the library, a resource, and they also use the library as a what do you call a shelter, because people in the library normally have more to do with the folks in the community than even people in the town hall.
Yeah.
Okay, so you mentioned the community center in passing. The community center is not just a place for seniors.
Correct.
Okay, with the gym and that facility, it is a gathering place for, indeed for the whole community, and it's been, quite a concern, for me, because I'd always been active, in community centers, and you're saying, is it in a couple of months? I know that the feds have said, that come 4th of July, we'll all be having barbecues and stuff. I'm optimistic, but I'm also not, I'm pragmatic in that we're not out of the woods yet. Okay, so,
No.
believe it or not, we're coming close to the end of this.
Okay.
So what would be the takeaway, in a general way of how do people continue to participate during this part, and what would you like to see them do, going forward?
People in general?
Yeah.
Make sure they ask questions to people who might help them get the answers. Instead of, on social media, there's a lot of buzzing around about and fake information or speculation, and I think that that's really unhealthy. So
the question comes, is there an easy way in this Zoom society for people to discover where to ask the right questions?
I think there is. I don't know if we can ramp up to be able to get that organized in an effective way before the end of the COVID shutdown. But I can tell you that it is one part of our strategic plan and part of our goals and objectives to have more effective customer service and more streamlined and efficient and clear. I mean, it shouldn't be a mystery on how to go about getting anything that you need to get from Town Hall.
I'm sure that in the charter review, you'll include that as an important point.
Yes.
Communications is also something that doesn't grow out of the ground. It has to be maintained.
Yes.
Well, here we are at the end of all of this. I want to thank you very much for coming, Judy Froman, the chair of our wonderful board, men or women. We'll have to figure out some way.
Select board.
Select board. There you go. We'll have to figure out some way of getting past that, especially for old guys like me, who are, why well, it does make a difference. Thank you very much for coming. And I want to thank the viewers for spending some time with us to find out a little bit more about what's going on in Bourne. And remember, you can participate in everything in the town by just getting in touch with the town hall with your questions. They'll have answers. It may not be the answer you want, but you'll never find out unless you get in touch with them and ask those questions. So thank you very much for watching, and I want to tell the viewers they've been watching another production of Bourne TV.